Well, friends, this is a extremely 2020s week. Like, I don't know if there's a more of a 2020s week than 2 moon landers launching, a Starship launch, new Glens flying. How could you get more 2020s than this, Jake?
How could you get more? Well, we all know the answer to that, and we don't want to say it out loud. So let's hope this is as most as 2020 as 2025 gets.
I said, to be clear, I said 2020s. I'm doing the decade. I'm not saying this. Although you're right that all of those things were supposed to happen in 2020 as well. So
throw the salt over your shoulder, spin around and spin, or whatever you got to do. Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite versions of this show, Jake, is when we get other people from the Philadelphia area on to annoy you with our Philadelphia isms. So Swapna, welcome back.
Thank you.
Snowing. We're chilly.
Yes.
And, I don't know what that'll bring to the show today.
Yeah, no, a little bit of craziness here.
Yeah. Well, I got the air conditioner running, so that's gives you a little bit of a
different worlds.
Yeah.
Very different world. Very different world.
A Switch 2 reveal we've got in the chat. That's the other thing that's going on.
Yes.
Switch 2
very
reveal.
Excited. I'm very
excited. Did you watch that video,
genuinely.
Jake?
So, okay.
It's just us.
Struggle.
Just us excited. Yeah.
I love Nintendo, but games here just have never ever worked for me. This has never been where I want to play games.
It doesn't have to be there. That's the point of the Switch. Okay,
but like just because it does 2 things, I don't need half the things this does, then I don't want to buy it.
That's a funny product.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of the Switch Lite. That's a good idea.
Yeah, have
they considered a regular ass console?
You just like Nintendo?
Yeah, like to be fair, I play with it docked like 90% of the time. So.
Yeah. And actually, as I was in the pre-show, I've been talking about how I'm getting older and I start to feel old now. Straight up gaming on the couch is like doesn't really work for me as much anymore because I'm just like, this is, I don't know, it's just like uncomfortable and like this is not where I want to. I'm like when I'm like an active when I play video games, like I'm engaged with it and I like to sit up straight. That's why I like a desktop PC because I'm like it's like I'm doing an activity. I'm not just like lazing
about
around.
His posture over here.
I know. All right.
It's posture elitist. Come on.
When I want to do that, I want to just like have a TV show be at me. I can just lay there and do nothing. That's not gaming for me. Anyway, there you go.
Wow.
A little bit of Jake philosophy on the world.
Jeez. Just coming out blazing.
I'm the curmudgeon now of the show.
What are you drinking over there? Something real, getting real spicy? What do you got?
Well, it's definitely old school. Look at this.
What is that thing?
Iron Maiden themed Trooper IPA.
Holy shit.
This. Yeah. Iron Maiden Trooper
IPA. That's the name of it. Wow.
India Pale Ale. Yeah. Bunch of Spanish. Intense. Don't drink it if you're pregnant.
Yeah. Under 18. Oh, under 18. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
It's 18.
You guys are the only ones that do it at the other age. So yeah, I'm doing this. It's weird. I saw it at the store and I was like, well, I got to get it because it's got a skeleton on it.
I have a skeleton on mine too. I have one of those same ones that I had last week. This Hop Cartel thing.
Nice.
It was tasty last week and I only got through one of them, so I brought it back.
I guess it's not a skeleton. It's like a zombie or something with a flag. Anyway.
I don't know.
Cheers.
Did you bring anything fun, Swapna?
Nothing fun. As I get old, I get dehydrated easily. So it's literally my like cup of water. Like
it's a cool cup.
That's it. So. Yeah, it is. It's a fun cup, but like it's also just literally it's so dry outside and I'm not having it like in this like upper respiratory area. So yeah, a lot of water.
It's the truth.
We are an energetic, youthful bunch today.
Feeling great. We stayed up late to watch rocket launches, and yeah, that's good.
Oh my god.
So we gave Mars Sample Return about 5 minutes of the show last week, like
3 minutes and 45 seconds.
On the way out. What do you think about this? And so we thought we should fix that today. We also have this new Glen launch that was absolutely beautiful. Which one do you want to start with? You get to pick.
Let's do New Glen. It's pretty short. Like, it was stunning. Like the view launch for this first one.
Tell me more about you being happy about that.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like the
Explain.
You
visual.
like the plumes. You're a plume.
I like the
fan.
plumes. That's the
Yeah.
thing. I like the plumes. That's
Yeah.
yes.
With the methane,
I
the
have
plumes are.
thoughts about how they treated the press for this, though.
Mm.
Which I did not try to get credentialed for this. Once it wasn't a NASA mission anymore, I was like, I'm not going to try. But I was reading Lauren Grush's The Business of Space from Bloomberg, which is her excellent, the excellent Bloomberg newsletter she contributes to. And she said that for the press, they put them in a windowless room at Cocoa Beach and like didn't provide a launch viewing area. It was like a live stream. Like,
Wow.
which, at NASA, it's a windowless room with a live stream, but we all can go outside and watch
Yeah, there's
the
a door.
launch. Like, you go outside and watch the launch, or you are bused to an area where you can see it if you can't see it from the press site. But, like, the entire thing was just like, and I was just like...
That confuses me because isn't the point of the Blue Origin factory like where it is, like by the visitor center? Like they have the mission control there and it faces, like you can literally just look out the window from mission control and see their pad. Like wouldn't you have like a rooftop like social area on there?
They do, and I bet that would come into play later, but I bet it was just jammed with the VIPs that need like security
maybe.
details and stuff.
Maybe.
Yeah, I just like, I'm not saying, you have to treat the press extra special or anything, but it's a first launch. We've been waiting a long time. Like, maybe just like, we're just asking for like a dirt field. Not, we don't expect much, especially at like Cape Canaveral. But yeah, I was shocked when I read that.
That's interesting.
So here I've got two angles there. Number one, I'm not shocked. Blue Origin is weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weird. I agree. Completely
Number
agree.
two, I'm gonna adopt for every New Glenn launch from now until eternity. The one thing I learned at our Artemis 1 trip, Jake, was tucked up in all the way at Port Canaveral is a bonkers view of the Blue Origin launch complex.
Yeah.
It is, I think, by the map, the closest you can get to the launch pad if you're not on like Space Force property.
Yeah.
So what we did during Artemis 1, since we did not get press credentials, was go out to the beach and have drinks way too early and had a good party. And I think maybe that's what we should all do from now on.
Yeah.
And not go to the official press thing.
That's actually what I've started thinking about. Like, there's literally, I was looking for, I don't remember what it was, but some launch, and there's literally like hotel rooms in Titusville that like you can get a hotel room just like with a giant view. I'm like, maybe that's the way to do it.
Let's try to get so much of the press to a particular location just on the beach. Like, pick some really bizarre, grungy location. All go there, and then if Blue Origin wants the press, they can send someone to our beach party.
Yes, I think that's the way. To do it.
I just pulled up the map. So where we had our beach party for Artemis 1 is 5 miles from the New Glenn pad. That's public. So that's 5 miles. Not bad. Like what's the NASA press like? 2 or 3? Like it's not really.
Yeah, it's not that close.
But I don't think you can get. I'll pull up Google Maps too if we're just gonna maps everything. Jeez, what a
and the nice thing too,
segment
it's not
of
just
show
5.
where we
It's
map
not 5.
stuff.
Yeah, it's not 5 miles of jungle either. Most of that's over the water. In the
Oh
beach.
no,
Like,
it's a beautiful view. Yeah,
an unobstructed view, right?
That's a great view. Wow.
You can't see the actual like pad because there's like a little hill or whatever. But 5 seconds into flight, that thing's coming over the treetops, and you've got a full view out to the ocean. Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
and I mean,
that's a great view.
screwed something up. That's there enough. I mean, you've got like obviously to the KSC Visitor Center, you've got like 9 to where you would hang out for some of the 39 launches. You're like 9.5, right? And even so, if you're on the causeway, if you can get to the causeway, then you're like 4.5.
But still, it's not that much closer. Half a mile.
Yeah.
Being like behind the rock is not ideal.
You can't be
right?
drunk on the beach at those locations. That's the
true.
critical
That's
thing that
about.
we learned. So
Yeah.
there's no rules at Port Canaveral on the beach.
No.
I think that's the
There's
legal
really none.
area where there's no rules. So
There's really none.
people are on cruises and on vacation. There's no rules.
Yes.
We can bring our flag.
Yeah, we had a flag for the Artemis 1 launch. That was good.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to those?
They're,
Do you have them?
right over there? Yeah, they're right
Okay,
over
I
there.
forgot to bring mine with me.
Yeah.
So.
Oh right, yeah. I have one. You have the other one. But
I don't have the other one.
oh, do I have both of them? Did you leave it there?
I think so, because we stayed up too late, and then I had to go to my best friend's wedding that was in Orlando very quickly. So
Oh, boy.
I forgot to pack
The
it.
amount of stuff that I left at that Airbnb, like we bought
Well, you
like
camped there for like a week and a half.
we bought like a full furniture set, like lawn chairs, too. Like I had a cooler. There was like all this food. There was like 30 beers. Like the amount of stuff I left.
Every time I go to, I get an Airbnb, usually at Cocoa Beach, I leave so much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a cooler. There's always, like every time.
Just restocking these people's
so
lifestyle.
yeah, it was pretty funny. But
so what? All right, I'm not shocked by the press handling. Is there anything else that you are shocked by on the launch? They made it.
They made it. I mean, I did not expect them to recover the booster, and they didn't, right? Like, and so, yeah, no, they made it. Like, they made it to orbit. I mean, that's more than I expected, honestly.
I
it's a first
bet
launch,
heavier
so.
on making the booster making it back than the
I was
orbit.
surprised by that, and they kept saying over and over again, like, a priority is not recovering the booster, and then they delayed the launch like twice because of rough seas, and I was like, it seems like you really want to recover the booster. So I don't know. Blue Origin, I'm really glad it took off. I'm glad it was successful, but they're so hard to cover. It's just really difficult in any way to cover them. So I just I'm like, all right,
just kind of doing it.
Yeah, I just don't engage a lot with them because it's just so hard to, like, even like I was like looking at like their Blue Ring Pathfinder payload stuff, and like everything is such business speak. Like even like the orbital reef, it's like an like literally they say it's like an office park in space. That's like literally what they say about it. I'm like, that's the least exciting way to describe a space station I have ever heard. So clearly I am not the audience for this. Like,
have you ever dreamed of having a longer commute to your shitty job?
Like, who is this for? Like,
I enjoy my commute.
Reef.
Okay, I enjoy my commute. Where's your shirt?
I should have worn it. Oh my god, that was so good.
Speaking of a long commute, we gotta watch this thing lumber off of the launch pad on this.
Yeah, man, it was slow.
This thing was just taking a while to get up there.
Look at that flame, though.
That's the moment right there.
Pretty.
When it clears the tower and it's still hanging there, you're like, wow, that's got a ways to go before that thing's gonna be moving.
I want to see. I need like Scott Manley or someone to like just put like all the big rockets on like a split screen, from the same camera angle, the same distance with the same times to see like the thrust away differences, because like it seems Saturn-esque, but I don't know if it's slower than Saturn. But like shuttle would have just like shot off that thing, but. Yeah, it's interesting. It was slow.
It's a slow one.
Yeah.
Not as slow as Starship 1. That was barely moving.
Well, what I'm really curious about though is like it was slow, but there wasn't much of a payload on there at this time. So like, what's it going to look like when they fill that fairing up with 158 Kuipers or like a space station or something? Like if they fit a whole office park in there, how what's the thruster ratio going to be?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously they haven't told us almost any details, so we don't know how much they had these engines trimmed back and.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe they were just like taking it easy. Could be.
Yeah.
Maybe they throttled down to simulate what it would be at full thrust with a full payload.
Wow. That is going out of your way to give them credit.
Yeah.
I don't know. To get the timings right. I'm just spitballing here. I got this Trooper IPA. I'm gonna figure it out.
I can't wait. I mean, we're just warming up here for some Mars sample return topics.
For some Mars drama.
How do we, real quick, last week we did some predictions, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
I think you were selling on New Glenn. I'm going to pull up the document. I don't think you were feeling too hot about their potential for the year.
Hang on. No. This is revisionist history here. This is revisionist history.
Is it?
I was not bearish on New Glenn. You were just outlandishly bullish, and I was not buying that.
Okay. So you said they fly maybe 2, is what you said.
I said 2 is believable. Yeah, I said 2 is believable.
Yeah, see that.
The other day, I think some article I read that that Blue Origin said we're going to fly 8 to 10, and we have the capacity for 12, which is hilarious.
All right.
Yeah.
My Swapna, you ground truth me here, okay? My prediction, very specifically, I called my shot. Mission 1 in January, Escapade in May, and a blue moon shaped thing in October.
Yeah, I think I could see that. Yeah.
I feel great today about this.
That's believable to me. Like the numbers that they were giving is not, but
8 to 10.
Yeah.
8 to 10 is a lot.
That's a lot. And we still don't know how the launch pad fared. There's a lot we don't know. Like they may have to do considering how slow it was to get off the launch pad, there may be some damage there. We don't know.
What they actually meant is they needed 8 to 12 engines. That's what they need. Beautiful launch.
I'm glad you feel great about it, and I'm excited to have this conversation in January 2026 and see where it's at. Yeah.
We're gonna have this conversation in May when Escapade's on its way. We're gonna have this conversation in October when there's a blue moon shaped thing flying towards the moon, Jake.
Yeah.
Yep.
I gotta get onto that.
This is the first launch in a long time where I've watched it and I was like, damn, that's a beautiful launch. It just looked great. I wish it was in daytime, but the plume was quite beautiful for the plume lovers among us.
Let me put it another way for you. Vulcan's first launch was picture perfect.
Okay.
And they had 2 in their first year.
Yep.
And they've got significantly more experience launching rockets than Blue Origin.
The company does, Jake, but not the people.
And it needs
I have a feeling there's a lot of people
5 fewer engines.
Other company that's launched a lot of rockets. It needs 5 fewer engines, but it does need those solid rocket boosters, which tend to have some observations from time to time.
Yeah, but what I know about Northrop Grumman solid rocket boosters is that they're always made 10 to 15 years in advance, and they're just sitting in a warehouse somewhere. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm just letting this plume run for a second.
Yeah, I was like, it's a pretty plume, man.
That's beautiful.
It is. It really is beautiful.
I didn't expect this to look this clean.
I love the slow roll on it too. You can see the...
Oh, yeah.
Lovely.
Just a touch.
That's why I was glad it... I wish it launched during the day, just, for my own schedule. And, we can see more during the day, but, this was gorgeous.
Yeah. Got to have one of those for the record books.
Yeah.
Launch the rest during the day.
Please.
This is the only one that, where they were launching it doesn't matter either. That's the confusing part.
Yeah.
Well, our theory on that, we were talking about that in the Discord, and the theory was that, because it's a methane rocket, there's that huge methane exclusion zone because they're not sure how explosive it is. So they have the huge zone. So you're shutting down all marine traffic and all air traffic. So doing it at night is just a little easier on everybody.
Better weather, better sea state.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I'm just saying Swapna and I have kids and we already wake up once or twice a night and would rather not wake up 3 times a night.
Yes, I will admit I did not stay up for this and I watched it this morning because I was like, there's no way. No way.
I don't have kids, but I've already established in the show that I am now going to be 40. So
you act like it, yeah.
Yeah. No, not happening. Yeah. I need my sleep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
No, it's good though. It was a good flight. I'm happy with it. It's a success.
And it might even launch something to Mars next time.
Maybe. Yeah.
Speaking of which.
Maybe in May.
Maybe in May. It's going to be May. Where are we starting on Mars Sample Return? Yes. Yep. That's where we're at.
You can't do that joke until the last week of April. Come on, man.
Oh my God.
Listen, I can do what I want. All right.
Dear.
We did, like I said, we did 5 minutes about Mars Sample Return on the last show, which was woefully underdoing it. And It's been a little bit. We had some time to sleep on it. I don't even know. When did Rocket Lab get noisy about their Mars sample return thing? Was that before the last show that we did? Or after? That might have been a new element that we had.
No, it was before. It was right before. It was right before.
Okay. I was like,
So-
I think it was. I know it was last week.
They were coming out hot. I have questions about that we should get into, and like the strategy there and what they seek to gain from that positioning. What's your top line on this Swapna? Like vibe check on the non-announcement announcement. Where you at?
This is like, are you serious that this is where we are? Like, are you kidding me? This has been a NASA flagship mission since 1987. This is where we are in the year of our Lord 2025. So I'm not feeling good about this.
Yeah, that's a good take. That is a solid take.
Just like, I cannot believe that. I mean, we all know NASA moves slowly. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot that goes on. This is a mission that's owned by run through multiple centers, so it's going to take longer, but I just cannot believe how slowly it's going.
Yeah. The 1987 thing or whatever is like, yeah, I think that's whatever. But I don't think you even need to go back that far, because I think like,
No.
Hey, this has been under like pretty serious formulation since 2019, somewhere in that era, right, where they moved from where they had their PDR or the whatever it is, the KDPC or
KDPA, C.
Yeah.
KDPB, key decision point B, or whatever the one they had around that time that kicked them into the next phase, right? And then they just sort of like spun their tires and spent a whole bunch of money for the entire like Biden administration, the entire Nelson Biden administration, and then right at the end, we're like, oh, hey, this isn't going well. I'm gonna light a fire under them, and then you do a bunch of studies, and JPL's like, hey, we actually have this sky crane. I'll shave $4 billion off the machine.
Which is just like, why isn't this something like literally like, I mean, the proposal is to use the sky crane, which is great. That makes sense. But shave weight off the ascent vehicle. Like, how is this not stuff they were talking about a decade ago? Like, I just the sky crane's been very successful with Curiosity and Perseverance. Like, it just feels like we are nowhere if we actually want this mission to happen.
Yeah.
They also, considering that the impetus for the two routes that they have down select, I don't even know how to refer to this. They didn't really down select, but they said we're going to explore these two routes.
Yeah.
Both of them are enabled by we're able to save some weight on the ascent vehicle portion. And I feel like we have no detail on what that actually means. There were some obscure references. I don't know which one of you has taken a deep dive more into like where that is come from. Do we feel confident in what we could ascribe that to? There was talk about we can clean this stuff in orbit or not or on the surface, but not on the orbit. What is happening?
I mean, one of the like really tough technical
down
challenges.
Suggest. Wait, hold on. It's a great term.
Suggest.
Huge comments over this is how our stream works now. Down suggest is an absolutely
Down
fantastic
suggest.
term for this. Yeah.
What was I saying? Yeah. So no, there was I know one of the really challenging technical parts of this was like trying to manage the planetary protection part of what they call breaking the chain, right? Which is where you create an interface in the mission somewhere where like the outside Mars pathogens, the dust and stuff on the samples and all the stuff that's on the surface that has to operate on the surface. You create an interface where that
is it called pathogens?
I don't know, man. This is all made up
fine.
science.
Keep going. Sorry.
But you make an interface where that stuff can't cross over, right? And that handoff you call breaking the chain so that you can whatever. That was on the old plan was happening in space. So the Mars ascent vehicle will go up. It would like open its fairings. This little sample canister would come out, and then it would like rendezvous with the Earth return orbiter, which would ingest it. And that interface was the breaking the chain thing. And I guess that was really hard. And I know that they changed the size of the sample handling canister a whole bunch of times, like during the design. Like they kept changing their mind, like, oh, it should be this big, no, make it smaller, no, make it bigger, let's have 20 samples, let's have 40 samples. They just kept like back and forth. And because that's That's like the root part of the entire architecture. It just, every time they changed their mind, that change order cascaded through the whole architecture, and they redid everything, and they kept doing that over and over again. So moving that to the ground maybe cuts a bunch of that nonsense out. And like, that's my theory, is that you can like really simplify how that works. I still am not, the math is still not mathing for me though on like $4 billion. Like there's more than one thing contributing to that, and I don't know what it is yet. So
can you explain this how this is simpler now? So before, it sounds like they would launch a collection. They would launch the, all right, so you would go to the surface, they would scoop the tubes up and put them in some sort of containment device, and then that would launch to orbit. And you're saying that they would get Pac-Man'd up by the return orbiter? Like they would,
I believe, yeah. I mean,
it's not like direct.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not a direct transfer. They would release it and then capture it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In free space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's how that was going
to
work.
It
That
would
sounds
separate
ridiculous.
from the second stage, and the second stage would remain in orbit and have like a beacon to like broadcast where the sample container was, and then the Earth return orbiter was supposed to find it and lock on and then come get the sample container. Sounds very complicated.
It sounds ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah.
That sounds like that was never going to work.
No.
We've never even done that with like debris in Earth orbit. That's insane.
And it's all robotic. Like you can't, you know.
Yeah. And it's
okay,
like,
so how is this new? And that was considered breaking the chain because what?
Because like nothing, like the MAV is contaminated, right? Because it's like on the surface and it launches from, and it's covered in dust. So like you don't want the MAV to come anywhere near the Earth return orbiter. I think that was the idea, basically.
But the canister is. I love that our interaction on this show is explained like I'm 5 to me. On this. But
well, like
how is the canister not part of the MAV?
Well, so I think the like it was supposed to like transfer the sample tubes to a different NASA sample containment system inside the Earth return orbiter. Like I remember it sounding very complicated. Mm-hmm. Like because NASA's capture and containment system, that's what it is. Like transfer the tubes. How a robot, I don't know, a robotic arm or something, but like how are you going to operate a robot? I don't know. I have a lot of questions.
Yeah. There's some, that was the complexity driver, right? That whole interface is trying to like reconcile the planetary protection stuff with it and do it in a clean way, right? So I don't know. This is the problem.
We have an understanding of what the new thing is, though. That is easier than that was.
No,
right?
We don't.
Like, we're doing it on the ground instead of in space now. That's basically what they said, and it's like, okay.
How are we all collectively letting them hand wave away the part that says they will save us $4 billion?
Like, and also they talked about the option of like taking it back to lunar orbit, which would, that would shave off a decent amount of money. We'd still have to go get it from lunar orbit. And I'm like, if we're talking about the late 2030s that they're talking about this happening, wouldn't we have isn't Gateway supposed to? Wouldn't we have astronauts in orbit by that's what blew my mind. Like it's like they don't actually think Gateway is going to happen, or they don't actually think it's going to be there, because there was no addressing of because they were like, we decided not to do that because then we'd have to go get it. But if you already have astronauts
if you're there
on this space station in lunar orbit,
an office park.
It's
an office park. Okay,
it's an office park. Well, yeah. But anyway, I had
the key
so
part
many questions.
that Gateway's only going to have astronauts in it like 30 days every 2 years.
Yeah,
so.
is that right? Yeah. But we could we could, I don't know, overlap. I don't know.
My suggestion on that was that if you want the Mars sample return cost to go down, do not in any way tie it to the Gateway program.
That's true. That's true.
That's my advice to the team there.
Very, very good advice.
Yeah. No, so I mean, I think that there is probably a couple things going on here, right? So like, okay, you save a little bit of money when you change the lander to something that's either pre-made like Sky Crane or a commercially available service that just is cheaper because and then they found some way that, they cut something out they didn't need to on the sample handling stuff. And then I think the other thing is that the estimates on this new thing are just completely made up. So,
yes.
And my evidence for that is that like this is a mission that is still going to be 15 years ahead and like 15 years in the future, and so you just cannot estimate those. Like those, any NASA estimate for 10 to 15 years from now is always 100% going to be low. The second thing is that they still need 18 months to study these two options, which means that they don't know enough about them yet, which means they can't, adequately say how much it's going to cost. And then I think the other thing is that, the old price, the 11 billion, I bet you was just really, really bad and wasn't what it was supposed to be. And so you could run the exact same program, but just like run it well, and you would have saved some money off of it.
And they've already spent what, $20 billion? Like, it's so much money.
I don't know what they've spent on it so far, but
they said at the press conference they've spent $20 billion so far, and I'm like, on what?
$20 billion? No. I think, was that a Bill Nelson quote?
That was a Bill Nelson quote, to be fair. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He also tweeted congratulations to New Glenn with a picture of Falcon 9. Week,
no, he didn't.
Yeah, I did.
Did you relate that guy?
It's probably our first off nominee. So
did he delete it?
He did delete it, yeah. But there's a screen cap, so we can get it. We can get it, yeah. It's on Reddit.
I don't even know if I made the off-nominee document for the year. Oh, no, I did. Oh, no, we had one. Utelsat and OneWeb had a daylight saving time glitch. Not a leap year situation.
Jeez. Oh, boy.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
I gotta find out.
I have a lot of questions. I also have a lot of questions about the ascent vehicle in terms of there's already, like, Lockheed Martin's working on it, supposedly. Like, right? Like, the rocket, like, aren't they building? I don't know where they are, to be fair, but they've had the contract for a while, so.
That doesn't mean anything with Lockheed, though. They've been building Orion for 2 decades, too, so.
Wow.
It's true.
That wasn't a lot of, I feel like I've seen a lot of videos of the launch mechanism is that also a Lockheed thing with the, where it would
No, that's JBL.
That's JBL where it launches the rocket, it like
throws it. Yeah.
I don't know why that noise is going to help audio listeners, but like pops it up, but not just straight horizontal to the ground. It gives it a little bit of a tilt, and then it can.
You don't need to go straight up on Mars because the atmosphere is so thin. So you can launch at like something like 30 or 40 degrees off the ground or something like that. So they kind of like tilt it up to 30, and then it throws it up in the air, and it air lights, which is wild. But the spring mechanism is super cool in that, but I don't know. Maybe they don't need that too. Maybe that's some money they can dial off. But
have they thought about contracting Spin Launch to set up a launch thing on the surface of Mars and just fling it off the surface?
It would probably work much better.
Probably work on Mars. Yeah, it's just rocks.
Spin Launch,
take 10,000 Gs
on Mars.
I always thought it would work better on the moon.
Spin Launch is gonna go Mars.
Okay, so then the other tactical question here is like, why the fuck did they announce this right now? Why did they feel the need in January to? Was this January where they did it?
Yes.
It was, right? Why did they feel the need in the closing days of their tenure? Is this a Bill Nelson legacy play? Is this an earnest use of their Mars sample review team output? Where do you land on that?
I think it's 100% political. I think they're worried this is going to get canceled, and they want to show their work on it so far and kind of challenge Congress to continue funding it and challenge. Like, I think it was 100% political. A friend of mine who works at NASA told me that like the mood there is very somber, like very, very somber with like the people in charge internally. They're not feeling good about anything, and they're not, and so that makes sense. And so knowing that, it's just, I think it's 100%.
They want a posture for whatever's gonna come.
They're hoping. Yep. 100%. And like, I think like it was specifically this press conference was to make it clear that we want to beat China. Like, I think, because like, that rhetoric has increased significantly since the election. Like, they constantly talked about that when they didn't talk about it at all before.
And Nelson, I give credit to Nelson for being a China hawk. He's always said I think his confirmation hearing the first time around, it was where
Yeah,
the
day
quote,
one, I think he
"Watch
was
the
all over that.
Chinese" was his quote in the hearing. Him personally, no
like-
one else seemed to catch on
Right
to that.
before
Yeah.
he walked into the confirmation hearing, he hung up with Robert Bigelow, and they had a little chat. And then
God, that comment.
I just like it was but I think that was like if you want to beat China, which is like a new priority of the new administration, like this is and like I mean I don't know, but like I think it was 100% political.
yeah.
Go ahead, Jake. Where's your Nelson
I
take?
mean,
I know
I
you got
think
a
that's-
barn burner of one.
No, I mean that's a pretty good take. I mean, like anything, it's probably a little bit of a bunch of stuff, but I think that there's definitely some face saving going on because, like like I said, this has been running like this poorly for 4 years on Nelson's watch, and if he just left it to flounder and then didn't do anything, it would look really bad. At least now he can pretend like he cleaned it up, like it was someone else's problem and he's the fixer, like I noticed this was not running very well, so I lit a fire under everybody and then told them to do some studies, and then I made the studies really fast and I got it done before I was out the door, but I still got it done, and it's like this is your mess, bro. But yeah, so I think there's some face saving going on there, but also political, because it was I wrote a blog post about this, Swapna, and my whole thing with it is that Mars sample return is like very precarious right now with this new administration. Like for all the rhetoric that we're seeing, if they're going to go after all this like government waste, like this is the kind of program they're talking about when they say things like that, right? And so they, if you do have an interest in Mars sample return, like you absolutely need to position it better before you go out the door. So I don't know, maybe Nelson just got pressure from people who are sticking around and have to clean up this mess, right? So
How much does it matter that $11 billion is $1 billion more than Elon Musk personally has totally randomly said that would cost them to do a human landing system to Mars program? That was a terrible sentence, but I'm pretty sure he's like 10 billion. We'll do it for 10 billion. And this is 11 billion. I got good sample collectors right here. I cook
filthy
sous
meat
vide
bag sample
sometimes.
collectors,
I could put raw meat in a bag without touching the outside of the bag and break the chain.
Are you going
do
to pick
that.
up the rocks before or after you change your kid's diaper?
Oh boy.
Break the chain, baby. Just got to break it backwards, not forwards. Oh, that's your other thing we should talk about, Jake. You have a whole like planetary protection master thesis going on.
Yeah.
Jake has two conspiracy theories in the world of space. Swapna. I should fill you in on both of these.
Yes,
One
please do.
is
Always want to hear good
JSC is the space Illuminati pulling the strings out of everything. So Johnson Space Center has masterfully crafted the fixed price propaganda of the modern era to basically just be cost plus in disguise. And then the other is that the planetary protection scheme, the House of Planetary Protection, is about to crumble like dust. It was never really thought through anyway, and all the guidelines are made up, and no one's in charge of it anyway. So it's, I don't know. Jake, I'm losing the plot here. What's your planetary protection thing? You have some master theory about it.
I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory. It's more just like, here's the facts about what this is right now, which I know is what every conspiracy theorist would say, but
He literally is just asking questions.
it's just facts, Anthony. No, but like,
Just look at what's in front of you.
so it is, planetary protection is paper thin. I'm air quoting here, law, right? It's paper thin law. There is like one line in the outer space theory, outer space. What is it called? Outer space treaty theory, conspiracy treaty. There's one line in the treaty, and the United States is a signatory. A bunch of other countries are too, including things like China and whatever. But like that's the extent of it. And so there is some like part of American law. I don't know. I haven't found out like the exact details of this, but there's some American law that says like if we are a signatory of an international treaty, that treaty becomes federal law as well. And so because the United States signed the Outer Space Treaty, planetary protection is technically the law in the United States, but Congress has not appointed anybody to regulate it the way the EPA regulates the environment or the FAA regulates launch, et cetera, right? And so that's what they call the regulatory gap. There's no one who's in charge of like making sure you don't break that law. And so basically NASA has gone it alone. Every planetary protection policy, basically NASA wrote up what they think should happen. They gave it to COSPAR, which is the international body. And then COSPAR says, well, you're NASA. We're not really going to argue that much with you. And they just stamp it and they put it into the, the guideline, the COSPAR guidelines. So like it's all like very, very paper thin. That's like the extent of the regulation, right? And that's been mostly fine. And kind of as we've gone a little further and further and further and push the boundaries, we've had to like rewrite different things. And so Viking was the big example. It was the first time we landed on Mars. So NASA wrote up a whole thing about how we should land on Mars and whatever it should be. And then that's how we have those. We're still using those, by the way, like the Viking whatever processes, which are not good for today. We're still using those for planetary protection. That's when we say needs to be updated, that's what we're talking about. But Mars sample return is the next like place where we're going to step into where there are no rules written yet. So like a class 5, this is the first time that we were going to work with samples and then bring them back to Earth, right? And so it's like it's the highest level planetary protection mission we've done so far. And so we in tandem with actually executing this mission, somebody needs to actually write some ideas on how we do it with regards to planetary protection. And it looks like it's going to be the Trump administration that does that, because we're going to do that in the next.
How is this different than other sample return missions that have happened, though?
We've never done one from Mars. That's different.
Not from Mars, but what? Like, if I'm a enterprising astronomer, I would say it's just another rock. It just happens to be bigger than the other rocks we've returned samples from. Like, what's the difference?
So it's a aqueous environment, right? It's so under the like COSPAR guidelines have like a
water's freaking everywhere.
No. COSPAR guidelines have like a classification for what places in the solar system could harbor life and which ones couldn't. And there's like class 1 through 5, I think it is. So Mars with samples is the level 5 mission. We've never done a level 5 mission. Samples from the moon is like a level 1 mission. It's like nobody cares. Like
I can't wait till my thesis comes true that life is fucking everywhere and all this is completely irrelevant.
Yeah. So
agreed.
So this is the long way to say that planetary protection is a policy that is ripe for disruption and needs to be rewritten. And is that
both? Are you saying both? What is it? Forward and backward, right? Like to Mars and from Mars. You're saying both
of those
are
places we've never done. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've never operated on Mars in a way that needs to be sample conscious. That's like the first difficulty. We're working with things, so we need to like the spacecraft that Perseverance and the lander, all of that needs to be like hyper clean and figured out. And then the second part is we're bringing that back to Earth, and so we need a whole process for that. Those are two things we've never really done before, and so we need to write those rules. But
all right, say the rules get rewritten and whatever, they shake out in a certain way, and then we go and do Mars sample return. Thing comes back after the Pac-Man happens and all that kind of stuff. Comes back. Is there like a verification regime that like everything went as is? Do we actually test this thing to make sure that we did that? And if we didn't follow the rules, we're not allowed to get the samples. What's the actual?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Then what?
There are no regulations. No one is in charge of doing that. So the highest authority on planetary protection is the NASA Planetary Protection Office, who is not a regulatory body and don't have any. Like,
they're regulating themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. The administrator can say, "That's a nice idea. Now go to hell, and I'm going to do whatever I want anyway." Like that's how the level of authority they have, right? They report to that. So yeah, I did some research. There's some like wild stuff about like Curiosity and some stories about that where or so was it Perseverance? I think it was the sample handling thing where they screwed it up. As you said, like they had the thing sterilized and they had to like reopen it was Perseverance. They had to reopen it to put the drill bits back in. Maybe it was Curiosity. They both had drill bits. Anyway, one of the rovers, there were some drill bits. They had sealed the thing and like it had been safe for planetary protection. And then they opened it and put the spare drill bits back in. And it was like way late in the process. And like, you're going to miss a launch window if you had to fix it. And someone had like the Planetary Protection Office and the leadership were at odds with it. And they had a big fight and then they were overridden. So like that tells you an idea of what, so Curiosity actually broke planetary protection guidelines on its mission. So there's some wild stuff that goes on with that, man. It's crazy.
Makes sense. I mean, I don't know. I think there is merit to both your conspiracy theories. We take a look at the fixed, price contracts for Boeing for Starliner. There's a lot more money than just, one contract for the flight.
Fixed. Yeah. No. So I guess this is a long way to say that this new government is probably going to have to make some interesting choices on things the next little bit. And
I am actually very curious to see what they do. Very curious. I think there's some very interesting things that are going to happen.
Yep. And you can go one step further, right past Mars sample return as humans, which currently the planetary protection guidelines straight up cannot support. There's no way you can satisfy the existing guidelines and send a person to Mars. Like they're mutually exclusive. So they have to be rewritten before you do that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's the guidelines NASA wrote for themselves. Or is that?
Yeah, the guidelines that COSPAR approved.
Okay. All right.
For NASA that came from NASA. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like in many things, the Americans are the big game in town, and so you guys kind of get to set the precedent for a lot of stuff.
I know. China didn't sign the Outer Space Treaty, right?
They did, yeah.
They did. Okay. Do we know anything about their planetary protection for this latest? I mean, I know you said the moon is like really low.
Yeah. I read some story.
So
I read some story of a scientist, a planetary scientist that went to like a conference where there was a Chinese planetary scientist. And like the extent that we know, like they publicly said like, yeah, we do planetary protection for, like Chang'e one or whatever. And apparently this guy like sat next to him at like a conference dinner or whatever, and was like, "Do you guys really do planetary protection?" He was like, "Yeah, it's good."
Oh, that's convincing.
Very clean, very clean. And that's like the extent of the story. Yeah, like no details, like straight up wouldn't say anything about it. So, who knows, man? Who knows? But
yeah, I think that's what I'm getting at is like, all right, we follow these rules and then we land back on Earth. Are we going to go through the rigmarole of testing if we followed the rules right and then have to theorize on what actually happened if we find something?
Well, you test before you leave, right? Once you get back, like there's testing. I mean, you probably do test to see if.
Well, then why write rules for the way back? Just write rules for the way out.
Well, the rules for the way back start from when you leave, right? Like you want to make sure.
Okay, so then what the hell is this whole like the MAV is dirty? No, because it's talking about back contamination, right? This is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous system.
Yes,
it is wild. It is.
I'm an abolitionist in this case. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like,
there's nothing to abolish. That's the good news.
Yeah, I guess. It's kind of how I feel about most of the late 2010s were dominated by a lot of think pieces about what are we going to do when someone tries to do this thing on the moon, and then the 2020s are like, turns out people are trying this thing on the moon. What do we do now? And I just, I feel like that's where we're going to end up regardless. So we are spending a lot of time on stuff that we're going to just have to confront when it happens rather than thinking our way through it now.
That's exactly how planetary protection has always gone.
Yeah.
Like literally,
like
every
shit,
time
someone did this thing.
Like the Viking mission started before there were rules about how the Viking mission was going to operate on the moon, right?
Right.
Like, so like literally NASA goes, "Oh man, we're doing this now. Can we tell COSPAR how we're going to be smart?" And then they go, "How do you want to do this?" They go, "I don't know. I guess we'll like bake it in an oven." Like, okay, cool. Hey, COSPAR, we're baking the spacecraft. The rule is you bake the spacecraft, stamp, done. All right, here we go. Right?
Meanwhile, we're like scraping microbes off the outside of the space station, like still kicking. Yeah. They still got it,
Yeah. So like, regardless of the administration, that's exactly what the Mars sample return mission was going to do. They're coming up with this thing or whatever, but that can very easily change, right? So. Yeah.
Yeah. This gets pretty like, I don't know. Gets pretty theoretical pretty quick, but it also gets pretty, not like, I don't know what word to even use for it, but you get into this whole thing of like, all right, if we transport some of these microbes to Mars and then they end up taking over Mars, I always hear that we'll be able to know the difference between Martian life and Earth life when we look at it in a microscope. So,
maybe.
Okay, we'll maybe figure that out, but also, I don't know, like, If it's not the microbes' fault that they got there, they just happen to do really well on Mars, and then all of a sudden there's Martians. Like, I don't know what to do with that. If there's a person walking around on Mars, then sure, I'm here for that, and then we can debate where that gray line ends. If there's
It's tricky.
I'm in.
Yeah, it is tricky.
If it's another singular celled thing, and the
It's
single
a very
cells on
ethical
Earth do
question,
better,
right?
yeah.
It's trying to solve ethics with science, which like gets you in trouble, right? So
Yeah.
It's just problematic.
yeah.
I also feel like you get the timeline overruns you, right? Like this thing gets back to Earth. How much time are we going to spend figuring out if we did all the things right before we crack open this thing that is the most long-awaited piece of science that has ever existed in humanity?
Yeah.
I mean, I think like I would
go through a pandemic again to get samples back from Mars, I guess is where I'm getting. Like, I'm good. I'll hang out in a mask for another 2 years if we get samples back from Mars. I'm cool with that trade-off.
I'm supportive with the concept of planetary protection. It is currently implemented very poorly and needs a lot of like fixing and stuff. But I think planetary protection does get caught up in the concept of life a little too much. Like it's not just about living things. I think it's just smart generally from a scientific perspective. Anytime you walk into a new environment, like to just try and, you put your gloves on sometimes just because you want to make sure there's a little bit of a barrier. That's basically what this is. This is the planetary interplanetary spacecraft version of putting your gloves on before you touch the weird thing, right? Like that's all it is. And so it's like it's not a stupid thing to do. It's just how many layers of gloves do you want? Like, do you put the full hazmat suit on before you go and like look at a thing across the bridge? Like, no, you don't. Like, it's fine. But so the implementation is a little wonky, but the concept is still, I think, valid. It's not just about
a lot of
preserving the
NASA things.
Yeah, it's not just about life, but you can just spill a bunch of whatever, like human skin into your rock sample, and then now you've got a polluted sample. Just like you can't study it as well because it's contaminated, right? Like it's not just about microbes. It's just about keeping the environments separate so that you can study them independently and have independent hypotheses and do proper science with it, right?
But isn't that up to the mission? Like shouldn't that just concern the mission scientists and engineers?
Well, yeah, and currently it does, right?
But why does it have to be national policy that like they fucked up their science experiment?
It's about preserving the environment, Anthony.
All right, we nailed it.
Because you agreed to it in the 1967 Outer Space Treaty.
Yeah.
To be clear, I did not. I was not there.
The royal you.
Yeah.
It's I think I have not thought this much about planetary protection, and that's what I like about coming on this podcast. Like I think about it always makes me think about something new.
I got really deep in it a few weeks ago, so
I like it. Like, no, I appreciate it genuinely. It's not something I've thought about in depth, and that's a really good point.
I read about like 5 or 6 of those like Academy of Science and Engineering reports. Like all those ones. Ooh, there are some gems in them, man. Reading those, every journalist should read every one of those. There's like always something good in those big. They're long. They're like 100-page reports. But man, there's gems in there.
I spend a lot of time reading NASA reports, and it's actually very interesting.
Yeah.
Like there's always something interesting where I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. So anyway, we're really excited to see how that pans out.
Gotta love, really excited to see what happens generally with Mars sample return.
Yeah.
Can't say I'm optimistic, but like that being said, I really hope it happens. Like, and somehow I hope we pull it together in some way, because I would really like this to happen, in our lifetimes.
I'm currently torn on whether, because like I obviously want the mission to happen, but like I think a viable answer to like the problem that we have with this right now is we're not ready to do this, and we need to go back. You need to park this project, do other stuff for 5 or 10 years, and develop new technologies and get better at things, and let the commercial industries develop things, and then like circle back and then try again. Right? I think that's like, I don't know if that's the right choice, but I think it's probably a valid one to think about. And so that's where I'm kind of torn right now, is like, where are we on that? Like, we've wanted these samples for a long time. Was now the right time to do it, or did we bite it off a little early? I don't know. We'll see.
I think that's a good point, especially considering like Mars, like we haven't NASA hasn't brought back robotic samples from the moon. Like the only, maybe that's the place to start and try and see if it works. Test the technology.
A moon to Mars type.
Hey, there's a whole office at
One
NASA
of
if you
those.
weren't aware.
The whole other conversation that we could have a whole other podcast about is like what is the objective of the project, right? Because right now it's like very science driven, and so like the science director that runs it, they said we're doing this to get science, and so the Mars sample science is better than the moon sample science because we already have the moon samples, right? So like if you're a scientist saying why don't we go to the moon and get robotic samples first, is like that doesn't solve our question. Like, well, I don't want to do that. I already have moon samples. That doesn't help me in any way, right? However, if you flip it and you say the point of this project is to develop sample return capability that we can use across, as an agency, we want to develop either an industry or a technology that can do this regularly, then absolutely going to the moon makes a lot of sense, right? So then that's your question of priorities, right? Like which is more important to do right now?
I'm always about developing the engineering. Like, I think one of the coolest parts of all of it is like developing the capability to do it. Like, that's, I think the science is great, but, I just always like to know how things work.
I think NASA does that really well too. I think that's like an undersold. It's hard to market that, but I think like NASA's biggest boon is that they've created capabilities that you guys can use over and over and over again, right?
Man. We got a moon to Mars type and a capabilities approach type. I don't know where I'm at here. I'm in the early 2010s.
Charlie?
Space policy.
Is Charlie here?
Man.
Call up Lori Garver.
Oh my gosh.
Swapna, what are you working on these days? Let's hear about Ad Astra.
Yeah, I'm just still sending out my newsletter.
Not the Tom DeLonge
Not
one.
the movie.
Yeah.
Right?
And not the not
Is
the
the Tom
school,
DeLonge
but-
one called that? Or the Elon Musk school, yeah.
Yeah, the Elon Musk
Right.
school, which I was
That's
like,
right.
oh, good. Love to share the name with yet another thing. Makes me even less Googleable. Just sending out, if you would like to read my 3,500 word screed on Mars sample return, there it is up top.
I did. There it is.
It is long. And just doing that, YouTube, newsletter, really, really kind of figuring out, the ins and outs of like, I've been doing that like regularly for a year. So now it's like, what do I want to focus on? Because I'm one person, cannot do everything. So it's figuring out like how to pick and choose, which has been because I want to do everything because I find it all interesting. But like I'm one human with a child and cannot do everything. So it's figuring out now what I can do and what I need to let go.
Content strategy.
Yes, that's it. And I'm not good at it at all. Because I want to do everything. Because it's space, and I like it, and it's cool.
Yeah.
It's too much now.
Yeah.
I've always just cast off, whenever people ask me, like, what kind of space stuff do you like? I just tell them, like, rockets, not black holes. Like, I like black holes, but I'm never going to cover black holes.
Yeah, that's the problem. I do it all, and it's too much.
Yeah. I keep it within a couple AU. It's pretty much where I hang out, Single digit AU. That's my territory.
Fair.
Yeah.
Single digit AU. Oh,
Single digit AU is my range. That's my happy spot. Yeah. I like all the other stuff. I love my telescopes.
Yeah.
I look out there. I'll look at it, but that's about it. I won't think about it much.
Yeah, makes sense.
And none of it makes sense. Nothing beyond a couple AU makes sense. It's all nonsense.
Yeah, the astrophysics world.
None of it makes sense. Even as I always say, the Big Bang sounds like bullshit. Like that sounds like some absolute bullshit that we don't know.
Yeah, I love
what happened yet.
cosmology. I love cosmology. It's like
So
one
there
of
was
the
nothing,
places
and then
I
there was
nerd out the
everything,
most.
and it just keeps going. That sounds like some bullshit that you didn't figure out yet. So, yeah, that's what I got, Jake.
Okay, that's your content strategy, Swap. You got to do the cosmology stuff because me and Anthony ain't gonna do shit on
no.
it.
Nothing.
It's
If we want to be a trifecta here, you got to cover up our weak spots.
Yeah. Jake's got the conspiracy
fine with
theories. I got rocket politics, and then you cover everything else, and we're good.
I've got my Ode to Gaia that came out. The newsletter's coming out tomorrow because, like, another big thing. Gaia spacecraft ESA took its last readings this week. So, yeah.
All right.
Pour one out.
True.
Yeah, I thought you meant Earth, like generally, like you.
No, like the Gaia spacecraft.
No.
L2.
I was like, well, that's pretty cosmic. Yeah.
Yeah. Last science readings.
Oh man.
Yikes. All right.
What are we doing next week, Jake? What do we got?
What are we doing next week? Well, we're talking rockets next. We're not talking cosmology next week. We're talking rockets. And we have our friend Stephen Clark from Ars Technica coming on.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
Never had him on the shows, and we had to admit that to him in the email where we invited him. So.
We do that like an alarmingly large amount of time where we email someone and be like, we really like you. We've always liked you for years, and we've always wanted to talk to you. And this, for some reason, we haven't emailed you until now. So here it is.
It's our imposter syndrome, where if the earlier we started following you in time, the more weird we are about contacting you.
Yes,
right?
That makes sense.
I always had this block about Jeff Faust. Actually, Swapna, you were at EFT1, and way back when, and I distinctly remember my Jeff Faust imposter syndrome happening because we were on the causeway waiting for the launch, and I heard other people referring to Jeff Faust as like the best guy, and then it got in my head that like I should never talk to him.
No, I have so much imposter syndrome about him because he's so good. I have so much respect for him.
I remember the moment when it hit me too. Like it was December, the day before launch, December 3rd or whatever the scrub day was of EFT1 is when that developed. And then the moment we broke it was chronicled on this show when I told him about the dream that I had in which he had to finally cite us in one of his articles, but he cited us as a fan blog. And it broke my heart. I woke up like upset that that's how he credited us. So what a journey. You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, so Stephen Clark's coming on.
It'll be great. Hopefully Starship will launch in a few minutes and we'll talk about that next week.
Okay.
So we shall probably go and do that. But
yes.
All right, y'all.
All right.
It's been great. Thanks so much for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
Go Birds, even though you're not a sportser. Go Birds.
That's okay. Still, go Birds.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Go Chickens.
Oh, God, Jake. Bye.
No.